The bitter December wind cut through the small town of Pine Ridge like a knife. Snow had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the usually quiet railway tracks into a treacherous strip of ice and metal. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez had been home on leave for just 2 weeks, trying to shake off the memories of his last deployment in Afghanistan. The 28-year-old Marine had seen enough combat to last several lifetimes, and all he wanted was some peace in his hometown. That morning, Marcus decided to take his usual walk along the old railway path. It was something he did every day since returning home, a ritual that helped clear his mind. The tracks hadn't seen a train in over 5 years, but they still stretched for miles through the countryside, offering a perfect place for quiet reflection. As he pulled on his thick winter coat and laced up his boots, he had no idea this walk would change everything. The snow crunched under his feet as he made his way toward the abandoned railway line. The world was painted white, and the silence was almost complete except for the occasional crack of ice-laden branches. Marcus breathed deeply, feeling the cold air fill his lungs. For the first time in months, he was starting to feel like himself again. About half a mile down the track, something caught his attention. At first, it looked like a dark shadow against the white landscape. As he got closer, his heart began to race. There, trapped between the railway ties with her leg caught in the frozen metal, was a large German shepherd. The dog was shivering violently. Her dark fur contrasted sharply against the snow and ice. Marcus approached slowly, his military training kicking in. He could see the dog was pregnant, her belly swollen with puppies. Her eyes were filled with fear and exhaustion. It was clear she had been there for hours, maybe even overnight. Ice had formed around her trapped paw, and she was too weak to free herself. The dog watched him carefully as he came closer, but she didn't growl or show any aggression. Instead, she seemed to understand that help had finally arrived. Marcus knelt down in the snow, speaking softly to her. His voice was gentle and reassuring, the same tone he had used to calm frightened children during his missions overseas. Looking at the situation, Marcus realized this wasn't going to be simple. The dog's paw was wedged tightly between 2 metal rails, and ice had formed around it like cement. The temperature was well below freezing, and without immediate help, both the mother dog and her unborn puppies would not survive much longer. Marcus pulled out his phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The remote location and heavy snow had knocked out most of the cell towers in the area. He was completely on his own, with only his military training and determination to guide him. The nearest town was miles away, and by the time he could get help and return, it might be too late. The German shepherd looked at him with trusting eyes, as if she somehow knew this stranger was her only hope. Marcus had always been good with animals, and something about this dog reminded him of the military working dogs he had served alongside overseas. Those dogs had saved countless lives, including his own on more than one occasion. He began to assess the situation like he would any mission. The ice around the dog's paw was thick but not impossible to break. He would need tools, heat, and most importantly, time. The dog was showing signs of hypothermia and stress from being trapped for so long. Her breathing was shallow, and he could see she was going into shock. Marcus took off his heavy winter jacket and carefully wrapped it around the shivering dog. She didn't resist, seeming to understand that he was trying to help. The warmth from his body heat trapped in the jacket provided immediate relief, and he could see her breathing begin to stabilize slightly. Looking around, Marcus spotted an old maintenance shed about 100 yards away. It had been abandoned for years, but it might contain tools he could use. Every minute counted now, and he had to make a decision. He could leave the dog to search for tools, or he could try to free her with his bare hands and risk both of their lives. The dog whimpered softly, and Marcus made his choice. He would not abandon her, not even for a few minutes. Instead, he began working on the ice with his bare hands, using his body heat and friction to slowly melt the frozen trap that held her captive. Marcus worked steadily with his bare hands, ignoring the burning cold that was quickly numbing his fingers. The ice was stubborn, formed like a cruel vice around the German shepherd's paw. Each small chip he managed to break away felt like a victory, but progress was painfully slow. The dog watched him work, occasionally letting out small whimpers that seemed to encourage him to keep going. After 20 minutes of steady chipping, Marcus's hands were raw and bleeding. The cold had turned his fingertips white, and he could barely feel them anymore. but he had managed to create a small gap around the dog's trapped paw. It wasn't enough to free her yet, but it was progress. The German Shepherd seemed to sense his dedication and began to trust him completely. Realizing he needed a better approach, Marcus remembered his survival training from the Marines. He pulled out his military-issued lighter and began carefully heating the metal rails around the dog's paw. The warmth from the flame helped soften the ice and steam began to rise from the frozen metal. The dog remained remarkably calm, as if she understood that this painful process was necessary for her freedom. Working section by section, Marcus continued the slow process of melting and chipping away the ice. His jacket was doing its job keeping the dog warm, but he was now shivering in just his long-sleeved shirt. The wind had picked up, making the already brutal cold even more dangerous. Both of them were running out of time. As he worked, Marcus began talking to the dog, sharing stories from his deployments and his childhood. He told her about the military dogs he had worked with overseas, brave animals who had saved lives and brought comfort to soldiers far from home. The sound of his voice seemed to calm the German Shepherd, and she stopped shivering as violently. Finally, after nearly an hour of patient work, Marcus felt the dog's paw shift slightly. The ice was weakening, and he could see a clear path to freedom. But just as hope began to build, he heard something that made his blood run cold. In the distance, the unmistakable sound of a train whistle echoed through the winter air. Marcus's heart pounded as he realized the abandoned railway line wasn't as abandoned as everyone thought. A freight train was approaching, and from the sound of the whistle, it was moving fast. He estimated they had maybe 10 minutes before the train reached their location. 10 minutes to free a dog who had been trapped for hours. The urgency of the situation gave Marcus a surge of adrenaline. He worked faster now, using the lighter more aggressively and chipping at the ice with renewed determination. The German Shepherd seemed to sense the danger too, and began struggling against her icy prison with what little strength she had left. The train whistle sounded again, closer this time. Marcus could feel panic trying to creep into his mind, but his military training kicked in. He pushed the fear aside and focused entirely on the task at hand. This was just another mission, another life to save, and failure was not an option. With 5 minutes remaining, Marcus made a crucial breakthrough. The dog's paw was almost free, held now by just a thin layer of ice around her toes. He could hear the rumble of the approaching train in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. The German Shepherd was now actively helping, pulling against the weakened ice trap. Marcus used his lighter to heat the final section of ice, all while keeping one ear trained on the approaching train. The flame danced in the winter wind and steam rose from the melting ice. The dog's paw was so close to freedom, but the train was getting closer too. He could now see its headlight cutting through the snowy landscape in the distance. With 3 minutes to spare, the last piece of ice gave way. The German Shepherd's paw came free with a sudden pop, and she immediately tried to stand. But her legs were weak from hours of being trapped, and the cold had taken its toll. She stumbled and fell back into the snow, unable to support her pregnant body. Marcus didn't hesitate. The train was now visible and approaching fast, its horn blaring a warning. He scooped up the heavy German Shepherd in his arms, his jacket still wrapped around her shivering body. She was heavier than he expected, made even more so by her pregnancy. But Marcus had carried wounded soldiers through much worse conditions. With the train bearing down on them, Marcus ran as fast as he could through the deep snow, carrying the rescued dog to safety. His legs burned with the effort and his lungs screamed for air in the frigid temperatures. Behind them, the freight train thundered past the exact spot where the German Shepherd had been trapped just moments before. Marcus carried the German Shepherd away from the tracks, his legs shaking from exhaustion and cold. The train roared past behind them, its cars creating a wall of sound and wind that reminded him just how close they had come to disaster. He didn't stop running until they were a safe distance away, finally collapsing in the snow with the rescued dog still cradled in his arms. Both of them were breathing heavily, steam rising from their bodies in the frigid air. The German Shepherd looked up at Marcus with what could only be described as gratitude in her dark eyes. Despite everything she had been through, her tail gave a weak wag against his arm. It was a small gesture, but it filled Marcus with a warmth that had nothing to do with body heat. Now that the immediate danger had passed, Marcus could properly assess the dog's condition. Her rescued paw was injured but not broken, though it was severely frostbitten. She was dehydrated and weak from her ordeal, and her pregnant belly told him that puppies could arrive at any time. The stress of being trapped and the rescue itself might even trigger early labor. Marcus knew he had to get the dog to warmth and medical attention quickly. He pulled out his phone again, hoping the change in location might give him a signal. This time he was lucky. One bar of service appeared on his screen, just enough to make an emergency call. His fingers were so numb from the cold that he could barely dial the number. The call connected to the local veterinary clinic, and Marcus quickly explained the situation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the town's only veterinarian, listened carefully to his description of the rescued dog's condition. She had been practicing for 15 years and had seen plenty of emergency cases, but this one was clearly urgent. Dr. Mitchell agreed to meet them at her clinic immediately, even though it was technically her day off. She gave Marcus directions and told him to keep the dog warm during transport. The clinic was about 3 miles away, too far to walk while carrying a large pregnant dog, especially in his weakened condition. Marcus realized he would need transportation. His truck was parked back at his house, another 2 miles in the opposite direction. Time was critical, and the German Shepherd was showing signs of going into shock. Her breathing had become shallow again, and she was no longer responding to his voice the way she had before. Just when the situation seemed impossible, Marcus heard the sound of an engine approaching. An old pickup truck was coming down the rural road that ran parallel to the railway tracks. Marcus stood up, still holding the dog, and waved frantically at the approaching vehicle. The truck slowed and pulled over, revealing an elderly farmer named Henry Walsh. Henry took one look at the situation and didn't ask any questions. He had lived in Pine Ridge his entire life and recognized Marcus as the Rodriguez boy who had joined the Marines. Without hesitation, he opened the passenger door of his heated truck and helped Marcus get the German Shepherd inside. The warmth from the truck's heater was like a miracle, and the dog seemed to revive slightly as heat began returning to her body. During the drive to the veterinary clinic, Henry listened as Marcus explained what had happened. The old farmer shook his head in amazement, saying he had driven past those tracks hundreds of times and never imagined a train still used them. He praised Marcus for his courage and quick thinking, though Marcus deflected the compliments. To him, he had simply done what needed to be done. As they pulled into the veterinary clinic parking lot, Dr. Mitchell was already waiting outside with a medical cart. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and steady hands, exactly the kind of person you wanted treating an injured animal. She quickly examined the German Shepherd while Marcus and Henry carried her inside, her professional assessment confirming Marcus's fears about the dog's condition. The clinic was warm and well-equipped, a stark contrast to the frozen railway tracks where this adventure had begun. Dr. Mitchell immediately began hooking up an IV to combat dehydration and started warming procedures to treat the hypothermia. The German Shepherd was conscious but weak, her eyes following the veterinarian's movements with cautious hope. Marcus found himself reluctant to leave the dog's side. Something had happened during that rescue, a bond that went beyond the simple act of saving a life. This dog had trusted him completely when she was most vulnerable, and he felt a responsibility to see her through to complete recovery. Dr. Mitchell worked efficiently, cleaning and treating the frostbitten paw while monitoring the dog's vital signs. She explained to Marcus that the next few hours would be critical. The dog was stable for now, but her body had endured significant trauma. There was also the matter of her pregnancy, which the stress of the ordeal might have complicated. As if responding to the veterinarian's words, the German Shepherd suddenly tensed, her breathing changing to a rapid panting. Dr. Mitchell immediately recognized the signs and looked at Marcus with a mixture of excitement and concern. After everything this brave dog had been through, she was about to give birth to her puppies right there in the clinic. Dr. Mitchell moved swiftly to prepare for the unexpected delivery. She had handled emergency births before, but never under these circumstances. With a mother who had just endured hours of being trapped in freezing conditions, the German Shepherd's body was still recovering from hypothermia, which could complicate the birthing process and put both mother and puppies at risk. Marcus stood back, feeling helpless as he watched the veterinarian work. His military training had prepared him for many emergencies, but delivering puppies was definitely not one of them. However, Dr. Mitchell seemed to welcome his presence, explaining that familiar voices and gentle encouragement could help keep the mother dog calm during labor. The first puppy arrived within an hour, a small bundle of dark fur that immediately began crying for its mother. Dr. Mitchell quickly cleared its airways and placed it near the German Shepherd's warm belly. Despite her exhaustion, the new mother immediately began cleaning her baby with gentle licks, her maternal instincts overriding her physical weakness. Over the next 3 hours, 5 more puppies were born. Each delivery was a small miracle, considering what their mother had endured just hours before. Dr. Mitchell monitored each birth carefully, ensuring that both mother and babies were healthy. The puppies were all strong and vocal, filling the quiet clinic with the sounds of new life. Marcus found himself fascinated by the entire process. He had seen birth in many forms during his deployments, but there was something especially moving about watching this brave mother dog welcome her babies after surviving such an ordeal. Each puppy seemed like a victory, proof that his desperate rescue mission had been worth every frozen finger and exhausted muscle. The German Shepherd proved to be an excellent mother despite her trauma. She was attentive to each puppy, making sure they were warm and able to nurse. Dr. Mitchell was amazed by the dog's strength and resilience, noting that many animals would not have been able to give birth successfully after such physical and emotional stress. As the day turned to evening, Marcus realized he still didn't know anything about the dog's background. She had no collar or identification tags, and no one in the small town had reported a missing German Shepherd. Dr. Mitchell suggested that she might be a stray or possibly abandoned, which would explain how she ended up trapped on the railway tracks in the first place. The idea that someone might have abandoned this incredible dog, especially while she was pregnant, made Marcus angry. But his frustration was tempered by the joy of watching the new family together. The German Shepherd had claimed a corner of the veterinary clinic as her own, arranging her 6 puppies in a neat line against her warm belly. Dr. Mitchell explained that both mother and puppies would need to stay at the clinic for at least a week for observation and recovery. The mother dog still needed treatment for her frostbitten paw and continued monitoring for any delayed effects from her traumatic experience. The puppies, while healthy, were born slightly early due to stress and would benefit from professional care during their crucial first week of life. Marcus visited every day, bringing small gifts like soft blankets and high-quality dog food. The German Shepherd always greeted him with gentle tail wags and seemed to remember him as her rescuer. The puppies grew stronger each day, their eyes opening and their personalities beginning to emerge. Each one was unique, from the smallest female who loved to sleep curled up against her mother's chin, to the largest male who was already showing signs of being adventurous. During one of his visits, Dr. Mitchell approached Marcus with news that would change everything. She had been making inquiries around the county about the German Shepherd, hoping to find her owners or at least learn something about her background. What she discovered was both heartbreaking and incredible. The dog had belonged to an elderly veteran named Thomas Crawford, who lived alone on a farm about 10 miles outside of town. Thomas had raised German Shepherds for over 30 years and was known throughout the region for breeding exceptional dogs. However, he had passed away suddenly from a heart attack 3 weeks earlier, leaving behind several dogs with no one to care for them. According to Thomas's neighbor, most of the dogs had been taken to shelters in nearby cities, but this pregnant female had disappeared before animal control could collect her. She had apparently been wandering the countryside, lost and alone, searching for food and shelter, when she became trapped on the railway tracks. Dr. Mitchell explained that Thomas Crawford had been a decorated Korean War veteran who had dedicated his retirement years to breeding and training German Shepherds. His dogs were known for their intelligence, loyalty, and gentle temperaments. The mother dog, whose name they learned was Luna from veterinary records Dr. Mitchell had located, came from a prestigious bloodline of working dogs. This information gave Marcus a new perspective on the rescue. Luna wasn't just any stray dog he had helped. She was the offspring of generations of carefully bred working dogs, and her puppies represented the continuation of a legacy that might have ended on those frozen railway tracks. The bond he had felt with her during the rescue made even more sense now. A connection between one veteran's service and another's dedication to helping animals. Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. He asked Dr. Mitchell about the process of adopting Luna and her puppies. Dr. Mitchell was initially concerned about Marcus's sudden decision to adopt 7 dogs. She had seen many people make emotional choices during crisis situations, only to regret them later when the reality of responsibility set in. Caring for a mother dog and 6 puppies was no small commitment, especially for a single man who might be deployed again soon. Marcus understood her concerns, but he had given this decision serious thought. During his sleepless nights since the rescue, he had been considering his future after the military. His current enlistment was ending in 6 months, and he had been struggling with the decision of whether to re-enlist or return to civilian life. The experience with Luna had clarified something important for him. He explained to Dr. Mitchell that he had always felt a deep connection to working dogs during his military service. Some of his most meaningful relationships overseas had been with the bomb-detecting dogs and their handlers who had saved his unit multiple times. He had often thought about working with animals after his military career, but never knew how to make that transition. Luna's situation seemed like a sign, a way for him to honor both his military service and the legacy of Thomas Crawford. Marcus had done his research and learned that there was a growing need for trained therapy and service dogs for veterans dealing with PTSD and other combat-related issues. Luna's bloodline and natural temperament made her puppies potentially perfect candidates for such work. Dr. Mitchell began to see the wisdom in Marcus's plan. She had watched him interact with Luna over the past week and noticed his natural ability with animals. The way Luna trusted him completely and how calm she became in his presence spoke to an instinctive understanding between them. The puppies, too, seemed to recognize him as part of their extended pack. Over the following weeks, Marcus began preparing for his new role as a dog parent. He researched everything from puppy nutrition to early training techniques. He visited Thomas Crawford's abandoned farm and spoke with neighbors who shared stories about the old veteran's dedication to his dogs. Several people offered to help Marcus learn the basics of dog breeding and training. The transformation in both Marcus and Luna was remarkable. The dog who had been trapped and desperate on the railway tracks was now a confident, nurturing mother. Her injured paw had healed completely, leaving only a small scar as a reminder of her ordeal. She had gained weight and her coat had returned to its full glossy beauty. Marcus, meanwhile, found a sense of purpose he hadn't felt since before his last deployment. The daily routine of caring for Luna and her growing puppies gave structure to his days and a reason to look forward to each morning. His family and friends noticed that he seemed more relaxed and focused than he had been since returning home. The puppies grew rapidly under the combined care of Marcus. Luna and Dr. Mitchell each developed distinct personalities that reflected their impressive bloodline. The smallest female, whom Marcus named Hope, was incredibly intelligent and seemed to anticipate human needs. The largest male, Duke, showed natural protective instincts while remaining gentle with children who visited the clinic. As the puppies reached 8 weeks old, Marcus faced his next major decision. Traditional wisdom suggested that puppies should be separated from their mother and placed in individual homes at this age. However, Marcus's research into service dog training indicated that keeping the family together longer might actually benefit their development and training potential. Dr. Mitchell supported Marcus's decision to keep the family intact for several more months. She had watched the puppies learn from both their mother and Marcus, developing social skills and confidence that would serve them well in their future roles. Luna had proven to be an excellent teacher, showing her puppies how to interact appropriately with humans while maintaining their natural protective instincts. Word about Marcus's rescue and Luna's puppies had spread throughout the small town and beyond. Local newspapers picked up the story, and soon Marcus was receiving calls from veterans organizations, therapy dog programs, and individuals interested in the puppies. The attention was overwhelming, but it also validated his belief that these dogs could make a significant difference in people's lives. One particular call stood out among all the others. It came from a veterans therapy program in the state capital, specifically requesting information about Luna's puppies for their service dog training program. The caller explained that they had been following the story and believed that puppies with Luna's background and early socialization might be perfect candidates for helping veterans with PTSD. Marcus was intrigued but also protective of the puppies he had come to love. He agreed to meet with representatives from the program, but only if they would allow him to be involved in the training process. His connection to Luna and her babies ran deeper than simple ownership, and he wanted to ensure they would be treated with the respect and care they deserved. The meeting was scheduled for the following week, and Marcus found himself both excited and nervous about the possibilities. This could be the beginning of a new chapter not just for Luna's puppies, but for his own life as well. The railway rescue that had started as a simple act of compassion was evolving into something much larger and more meaningful than he had ever imagined. The representatives from the Veterans Therapy Dog Program arrived on a crisp Saturday morning in early February. Marcus had spent the entire previous day preparing, grooming Luna and her puppies, and organizing all the documentation Dr. Mitchell had helped him compile about their health and bloodline history. He was more nervous than he had been before some combat missions. Dr. Patricia Hernandez, the program director, and John Stevens, their head trainer, were immediately impressed by what they saw. Luna greeted them with the perfect balance of confidence and restraint that marked exceptional working dogs. The puppies, now 12 weeks old, displayed curiosity without fear, approaching the strangers with wagging tails, but remaining close to their mother and Marcus. What impressed the visitors most, however, was the obvious bond between Marcus and the entire dog family. They watched as he moved among the puppies, each one responding immediately to subtle hand signals and voice commands he had taught them. Luna never took her eyes off Marcus when strangers were present, clearly viewing him as her pack leader and protector. Dr. Hernandez explained that their program worked specifically with combat veterans who were struggling with PTSD, depression, and adjustment disorders. They had been searching for a source of puppies with the right temperament and early socialization for their demanding training program. Most service dogs came from commercial breeders who, while professional, couldn't provide the intensive early bonding that Marcus had given Luna's puppies. John Stevens, himself a Vietnam veteran, was particularly interested in Marcus's background and his natural ability with the dogs. He explained that many of their most successful service dog trainers were veterans who understood both the dogs and the unique needs of the veterans they would eventually serve. He asked Marcus directly if he had ever considered making dog training his post-military career. The question caught Marcus off guard, but as he considered it, the idea felt remarkably right. He had been dreading the end of his military service, uncertain about what purpose his life would have in the civilian world. The possibility of training dogs to help other veterans struggling with the invisible wounds of war seemed like a perfect bridge between his military experience and a meaningful civilian career. Over the course of several hours, the visitors evaluated each puppy individually. They put the young dogs through simple tests designed to assess temperament, intelligence, and trainability. Hope, the smallest female, showed exceptional problem-solving abilities and an intuitive understanding of human emotions. Duke demonstrated natural protective instincts balanced with gentle restraint. Each puppy displayed qualities that marked them as potential service dog candidates. The most remarkable moment came when Dr. Hernandez asked Marcus to demonstrate Luna's abilities. Despite having no formal training, Luna had learned an impressive array of commands during their months together. More importantly, she seemed to sense when Marcus was experiencing stress or anxiety from his own PTSD symptoms, automatically moving closer to provide comfort without being asked. This natural ability to read and respond to human emotional states was exactly what the program looked for in breeding dogs. Luna's puppies had inherited not only her intelligence and physical capabilities, but also her intuitive connection to human needs. The combination of their bloodline, early socialization, and the bond they had formed with Marcus made them ideal candidates for service dog work. Dr. Hernandez made an unexpected proposal. Rather than simply purchasing the puppies for their program, they wanted to offer Marcus a partnership. He would keep Luna and 2 of the puppies, while the program would take 4 puppies for immediate training. Marcus would also be offered a position as a trainer with their organization, starting with an intensive 6-month certification program. The arrangement would allow Marcus to maintain his connection to Luna while launching a new career helping other veterans. The puppies selected for the program would remain in contact with their mother during training, and Marcus would be directly involved in their development. It was a solution that honored the bond between Marcus and the dogs while maximizing the positive impact they could have on veterans in need. Marcus didn't need time to consider the offer. Looking at Luna and her puppies, surrounded by people who understood their potential and respected their bond, he knew this was exactly where his life was meant to go. The railway rescue that had started as a moment of desperation had evolved into the foundation for an entirely new purpose. The next few weeks were filled with paperwork, planning, and preparation. Marcus began the formal process of leaving the military, working with his commanding officers to ensure a smooth transition. Dr. Mitchell helped coordinate health certifications and travel arrangements for the puppies who would be joining the training program. Luna seemed to understand that changes were coming, staying closer to Marcus and showing increased protectiveness toward her babies. As the departure date approached, Marcus reflected on the chain of events that had brought him to this point. A simple morning walk, a desperate dog trapped on railway tracks, and a split-second decision to help had completely transformed his life. The scared, lost veteran who had been struggling to find meaning in civilian life had discovered a purpose that connected his military service to a future of helping others. The night before the puppies were scheduled to leave for their training program, Marcus sat in his living room surrounded by Luna and all 6 of her babies. They would never all be together like this again, but the bonds formed during these crucial months would last forever. Luna rested her head on Marcus's knee, her eyes reflecting complete trust and contentment. She had found her way from those frozen railway tracks to exactly where she belonged. 2 years after that frozen December morning on the railway tracks, Marcus stood in the graduation ceremony hall of the Veterans Therapy Dog Program, watching 4 remarkable German Shepherds receive their official service dog certifications. Hope, Duke, and their 2 siblings had completed the intensive training program with exceptional scores, and today they would be matched with the veterans who would become their partners for life. Marcus had completed his own transformation during those 2 years, earning his certification as a professional service dog trainer and becoming one of the program's most respected instructors. His unique combination of military experience, natural ability with dogs, and deep understanding of trauma made him especially effective at preparing both dogs and veterans for their partnerships. Luna had played a crucial role in his training career, serving as a demonstration dog and helping to socialize new puppies entering the program. Her calm demeanor and intuitive responses to human emotions made her an ideal teacher for both inexperienced dogs and nervous veterans. She had also become something of a celebrity, her rescue story inspiring donations and support for the program from across the country. The 2 puppies Marcus had kept, Storm and Grace, had become integral parts of his work. Storm showed exceptional abilities as a therapy dog, accompanying Marcus to hospitals and counseling centers, where he worked with veterans struggling with severe PTSD. Grace had developed into an outstanding detection dog, capable of sensing when someone was about to have a panic attack or emotional breakdown. Today's graduation was especially meaningful because one of the veterans receiving a service dog was someone Marcus had served with in Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had struggled with severe anxiety and depression since an IED explosion that had killed 2 members of their unit. Traditional therapy had helped, but she still experienced debilitating panic attacks that prevented her from living a normal life. Hope, Luna's smallest puppy, had been matched with Maria after months of careful evaluation. The intelligent female German Shepherd had shown a remarkable ability to detect the early signs of Maria's panic attacks, often alerting her partner several minutes before symptoms became apparent. During training, Hope had learned to perform deep pressure therapy, guide Maria to safe spaces during episodes, and even interrupt nightmares by gently waking her. The ceremony was emotional for everyone present, but Marcus found himself particularly moved watching Hope and Maria work together. The tiny puppy he had helped deliver in Dr. Mitchell's clinic had grown into a confident, capable service dog whose work would literally save lives. The transformation was as dramatic as his own journey from lost veteran to purposeful trainer. Duke, the adventurous male puppy, had been paired with a Navy veteran who had lost both legs in an explosion. Duke's natural protective instincts had been channeled into mobility assistance, and he could now help his partner navigate stairs, retrieve dropped items, and provide stability during transfers from wheelchair to bed. The large German Shepherd's gentle strength and patient temperament made him perfectly suited for this demanding work. As Marcus watched the graduation ceremony, Dr. Mitchell appeared beside him, smiling with pride at what had grown from their emergency collaboration in her small-town clinic. She had become an official veterinary consultant for the program, providing ongoing health care for Luna's offspring and their fellow service dogs. The partnership had enriched her practice and given her a deeper understanding of the healing power of human-animal bonds. After the ceremony, Marcus drove home to Pine Ridge, where Luna and her remaining companions were waiting. The old railway tracks where this story began had been officially abandoned by the railroad company and converted into a walking trail. Marcus often brought Luna there for their evening walks, both of them remembering the desperate morning that had changed everything. The local community had embraced Marcus's new career with enthusiasm, and he had established a satellite training facility in his hometown. Young veterans from rural areas could now access service dog training without traveling to big cities, and the program had expanded to serve 3 surrounding counties. Luna had given birth to 2 more litters over the past 2 years, each time producing puppies with the same exceptional qualities that had made her first family so successful. Marcus had learned to carefully screen potential breeding partners, ensuring that Luna's offspring would continue the legacy of intelligence, loyalty, and emotional sensitivity that had started with Thomas Crawford's careful breeding program decades earlier. The old farmer, Henry Walsh, who had driven them to the veterinary clinic that first day, had become one of Marcus's strongest supporters. He donated land for the training facility and often volunteered his time helping with basic dog care. At 82 years old, Henry said that watching the service dogs train gave him hope for the future and pride in what his small community could accomplish. Dr. Mitchell's clinic had grown too, expanding to include a specialized wing for service dog medical care. She had hired 2 additional veterinarians and established a scholarship program in Thomas Crawford's name, helping young people from rural areas pursue veterinary careers. The ripple effects of that December rescue continued to spread through the community in ways no one could have predicted. Marcus often received updates about Luna's children and their veteran partners. Hope had prevented Maria from having a single panic attack in the 6 months since their partnership began, allowing her to return to college and pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. Duke's partner had regained independence he thought was lost forever, even competing in wheelchair athletics with Duke as his constant companion and supporter. On quiet evenings, Marcus would sit with Luna on his porch, both of them looking out over the fields where her puppies had learned to run and play. Luna was now 4 years old, in her prime as both a mother and a working dog. Her rescue story had been featured in national magazines and television programs, bringing attention and funding to veteran therapy programs across the country. The transformation in Marcus's own life was equally remarkable. The nightmares and anxiety that had plagued him since his deployment had largely disappeared, replaced by a sense of purpose and accomplishment that grew stronger each day. His work with trauma victims had helped him process his own experiences, and the daily routine of caring for and training dogs provided structure and meaning that traditional therapy had never achieved. As winter approached again, marking the 3rd anniversary of Luna's rescue, Marcus received a call that brought the story full circle. A young Marine who had recently returned from deployment was struggling with severe PTSD and had been referred to the program. Like Marcus 3 years earlier, this veteran felt lost and purposeless, unsure how to navigate civilian life after combat. Marcus smiled as he scheduled the initial consultation, knowing that Luna's next litter was due in just a few weeks. Another generation of exceptional puppies would soon be ready to begin their training, and another veteran would discover that sometimes the most powerful healing comes through helping others. That evening, as Marcus walked Luna along the converted railway trail where their journey had begun, he reflected on the mysterious ways that fate can redirect a life. A frozen morning, a trapped dog, and a decision to help had created ripples that continued to spread, touching the lives of veterans, their families, and communities across the country. Luna trotted beside him with the confidence of a dog who knew exactly where she belonged. Her coat gleamed in the setting sun, and her eyes held the wisdom of an animal who had experienced both desperation and purpose. Together they had built something beautiful from what could have been a tragedy, proving that sometimes the most important missions begin with a simple choice to care about someone other than yourself. The railway tracks beneath their feet, once a symbol of abandonment and danger, had become a pathway to healing and hope. And somewhere in the distance, Marcus could hear the sound of new life beginning again, as Luna's latest puppies announced their arrival into a world that desperately needed their gifts.